I'll tell you what. You guys really cracked
That was a good
That's
one.
Great. Hey gang, it's Steve with Guitar Center. We're at GC Hollywood, and we have an awesome event for you today. Before we get into it, if you have not, please do subscribe. You know, go ahead and smash that button like the kid said 10 years ago. And now, without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, today we are going to learn how to put together an awesome rig for your guitar. We are going to learn what cool Electro-Voice products can help you sound better live. And we're going to learn how the guitar player can maybe stop thinking just about themselves when it comes to live sound. And now, a guy who just crushed a performance of Airplane Mode out in front of the stores, ladies and gentlemen, Cory Wong.
Hi, everybody. I'm sorry to do this. We set up quick. There's a E resonating in your microphone every time you talk.
Oh boy, here we go. Is it an EVERSE?
That's pretty good. We didn't even plan that. You could kind of. It's just that it'll like drive me nuts.
Yeah.
Mine's kind of got it too. And carve it a little, or just turn it. I don't know. It's just, I'll be so distracted if I don't bring it up right away. So I've learned.
That's
you know,
right.
good therapists will teach you these things. Just tackle
exactly,
the, you know,
yeah.
just say what you need, and then this whole thing will be, yeah. Anyways,
so that's
way to start it off here with a complaint.
That's the first lesson in communication when it comes to live sound. If something doesn't sound right, say something.
Yeah, and I mean it's not like, hey, something's wrong.
Specific.
You know, you can be specific. It's like, hey, I'm hearing this thing that's like gonna distract me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because of I won't give my best performance. And that's what I'm doing. I'm communicating why I need it.
Exactly, yep.
Yes.
So, Cory, thank you so much for being here. Everybody's super stoked to get to learn from you today. And I want to just set the scene with what are the sounds that we're going to hear through the live stream and here in the room. We're going to hear 3 or 4 different types of tone signals that are coming through. Can you set the scene for us?
Yes, so when I'm touring and when I'm playing in the studio, obviously there's a lot of tools that are available. Analog pedals, digital pedals, you have real amps, rack gear, digital modeling. I am somebody who grew up watching the digital modeling thing start at a place where everybody's like, oh my gosh, it's the greatest thing in the world, and then they realized, like, actually we're not nailing it. It's just like fun that I have it in this shape. Not to call anybody out, but cats have figured it out. Like nowadays, all the modeling stuff is, I mean, not all of it, but the majority of the professional level stuff is really good. And you can get great tones if you know how to dial it in. And part of that is knowing what it should sound like. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how I've used my experience with real amps and kind of creating the tones that I use with digital modeling. Today I have the pedal board that I've been using for the last week and a half with Wolfbeck. And it's just the pedal board that fits in my small suitcase. I literally had the footprint of my suitcase printed out, and I was just, what will fit on it? And this is what I've got. So, yes, it's the Velcro doesn't always work because they pull it out of the thing, and then they mess around with it. Well, you know, whatever. But I have pretty much everything I need here to recreate my sounds, but one of the things that I want to talk about today is many artists and guitar players, I'm going to speak from a guitar perspective for the majority of today because I'm live with a guitar, but a lot of players will just put their tone together and be like, oh my gosh, it's great, and then not consider how everybody else hears it, how it sounds in the room if it's going through a PA, because the tone doesn't stop at these XLR outs, or it doesn't stop at just the way that the guitar amp sounds on stage. You mic the guitar with a microphone, you mic the amp with a microphone, and then you put it through a PA. And those different elements are not things that guitar players are often thinking about. And the more that I've gotten neurotic about sound, as we displayed earlier, I guess, the more I've just tried to hone in all those aspects so the tone really is what I intend for it to be in the audience's ears.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting to think about, maybe for lack of a better term, the sort of puritanical nature of guitar players being like, well, I'll stick with my, 59 Les Paul, or I'm going to stick with my, whatever it is. There's some sort of like, the oldest stuff is like the best stuff.
Sure.
And can you talk a little bit about your approach to maybe trying new things and maybe being open to not necessarily what guitar laws there are?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that people are looking for out of an instrument, and I think at the core of it, for me, what I'm looking for is what's going to draw my voice out most effortlessly. If I'm trying to find my own voice, if I'm trying to express my artistry, I want to use an instrument and use gear that's going to help me get there in an effortless way. I have a guitar that I got this 64 Strat that's just unbelievable. It's just made from the right piece of the tree, the right pickups, the right wiring that day. Just somebody was on their A game when they were soldering that thing together. It was like, I don't know. And there's a lot of vintage instruments that are great. There's a lot of things that are downfalls of vintage instruments. The very fortunate thing that has saved my bank account over the last several years is for whatever reason, one of my non-negotiables, with a Stratocaster is I want 22 frets. And there's no vintage guitar, no vintage Strats with 22 frets. So it's saved me a lot of money.
Yeah.
I've played a lot of old Strats where I'm like, oh man, this thing's great. I'm like, yeah, but I got. So I've found instruments that really resonate with who I am as an artist and my voice on the instrument. And the same goes for pedals as well.
Yeah. And so the idea that maybe today we're going to run through a couple different rigs.
Yeah.
We're going to hear, so what are these right here? This is the full range frequency response rig here.
Yes. So these are basically what most of us would know as just wedges, right? But you could also use them as boxes for a PA, and that's what they're typically known for. Now, as I was starting to dive deeper and deeper into this neurotic journey of finding my guitar tone and recreating it live consistently, I found that, there's a PA company that also is very well known for making guitar speakers. So this company that's known very well for the speakers that Dumble put in the amps and all these other people have put in their amps, they kind of know what guitars are supposed to sound like, amongst other things. So a lot of times if I'm playing through one of my digital modeling rigs, so in here I have a version of the Archetype Cory Wong plugin by Neural DSP that we've put in this Quad Cortex. And it's got all my amp sounds, all my pedal sounds that I worked on with them, and putting it out through here. Just like when I play at home in the studio, listening through my monitors at home, it's a different thing. It feels different than an amp when you're sitting right next to it, but the way that it actually comes out to the audience and the way that it comes into your AirPods when you're listening 6 months after we've made the album or whatever, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
It's not that it doesn't matter how it feels in the room, because how it feels in the room is going to affect how I play. But at the end of the day, am I recreating the sound? So with these, I will oftentimes use these sort of speakers for live playing because they've just got a flat response that will accurately recreate what I've dialed in with the plugin.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So this is a pair of ZLX8s.
Yep.
And you have in here an amp model and a cab model.
Yep.
Do you also have a mic model in there as well? Or just the amp and the cab? And
Yeah,
then that's what we're
and I don't
hearing?
even remember what it is. I'm not precious about what mic is being modeled.
Yeah.
When we were building and developing the plugin, it was like, just pressing buttons and just playing. What feels correct? What feels correct? And they'd say, we nailed it with this. And they did. They would say something like, well, algorithmically, it's perfect. Like, this is an exact replication. We nailed it. I'm like, yes. I see the graph that you sent, but it doesn't quite feel the same. And again, like I'm saying, it in the end, it is what comes out of the speakers. But as I'm playing, most of you guitar players know you want it to respond the way that you're used to. You want it to feel dynamic. You want it to have life to it when you're playing. So that's really what's important to me. I'm not precious about, like it has to be a ribbon clone of this or blah, blah, blah. I honestly, I have no recollection of which mic model. Yes, there is a mic model on here, but I don't know or care. It's just like the one I liked.
Nice. Yeah. So let's hear a little bit of it.
Yeah.
I would love to.
So that's the dry tone. Little beefy. I mean, I think in a lot of guitar amps, if you're just in the room, you don't get the same amount of low end. But when it's recreated in speakers, you do have that. Or if it's being fed to the subs, you have that. So, and a lot of it also is just my preference. Like, you might not put the same EQ settings as I did. Fine. But, you know, the overdrive sounds... Where I really hear it is, where it kind of like does the thing that a lot of the old digital modelers didn't have. They didn't do the like, like it sounds like it's just again, if it's too algorithmically perfect, it's just to be like, yeah, we know how to fix this. But as guitar players, part of the thing is don't fix that. It like should be. It should have that sort of. Something's broken, something's wrong, and you want to utilize that wrong for emotion.
Totally.
Yeah.
And so it gives you sort of, I guess it gives you more control. If you have the full bandwidth to work with,
yes,
you can get so much lower and so much higher than maybe like on just like a standard combo. You might have this like mid-rangey laser sound coming out. So can we do a little A and B with
yes.
With an amp?
Let's do this. I am going to go. I can change on here the outputs. So for those that are wondering, I have outputs 1 and 2 going to these speakers right now, and I have output 3 being sent to the Fender Twin. And this is really what I do when I'm playing live now. My rig is XLRs to the front of house, and we use in-ear monitors, so that's what I'm hearing is just the XLR direct into my ears. And I have normally I actually have 2 lines out because I have some stereo effects that I use. So I'll go into maybe 2 amps, maybe 1 amp. I don't know. With that, it's just I want a little bit of something on stage so I can feel something. Or if my in-ears go out, I have something on stage that I can still kind of hear myself. It happened once the other night at the Palladium. My in-ear pack just went out.
Yeah. So
I took out the in-ears and just turned up the amp a little bit. And the amp's really just for me. And it's going to be blasting you. But so you'll hear a little bit of both. And it's that sort of thing. Yeah, it's just for that. So I'll show you some different examples of how I do that. But what I can do here is, right now I have everything going to outputs 1, 2, 3, and 4, but I can make it so it's just going out of output 3 into the amp. And actually I have a preset with that so I don't have to do it in front of you. Let's turn this amp on. So I'll play like the same thing. See, that's sort of where it goes. Yeah. That's the. That sort of thing. It's a little. The frequency spectrum. It's a little bit tighter out of a guitar speaker because that's just what we have. But anytime we mic it and put it through a PA, you get a little more of those things, anyways. And again, some of it's preference. In certain settings. Yeah, you mic an amp and you do that because that's just the thing.
Yeah.
Like if I got called to play an AC/DC, guess what? I'm not going to use a digital modeler because it feels disrespectful. It's just not the right tool for the job. You know? Like sometimes I'll see these older bands and I'll see these cats using guitars that just don't feel appropriate for the music, or the gear doesn't feel. It's like, I know you got to deal with the company, but. It just doesn't feel right for Alanis Morissette,
Yeah.
or whatever.
Totally,
I don't know.
totally.
I don't know
Yeah.
why she's the first. That is not. Hold on. Dang it, we're streaming live. We can't. Alanis is amazing, by the way. Guitar players are great. That was not an example for personal experience.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, if you're playing
Totally.
something that people associate with a certain thing, I feel like some of the gear should be.
To a certain extent, it's like a pointiness scale. Is the guitar too pointy or not pointy enough
Yeah.
for what's going on visually and sort of style-wise, right?
Yeah.
So we've got this gorgeous monitor here. This is what is this right here? This is a PXM12MP. So I want to talk to you first about something that's a bit silly. What is your philosophy on foot up on the monitor for a solo? Cool?
Totally
not cool?
fine if it feels appropriate.
Yeah. Okay.
Here's the thing. A lot of us guitar players right now are like, oh, I want to serve the song. I just want to play literally nothing on it. I don't even want to be heard, and it's going to make the song better. It's an exaggeration. Of course, we want to serve the song, play what's best for the song, play what's appropriate, and a lot of times that means play less. Guitar players, drummers, we hear this all the time, like, oh, yeah, serve the song. It's like secret talk for quit playing so much. It's like a nicer way of whatever. But there are times when your moment, this is you now. The singer was doing the thing, the band was doing the thing, but now the audience needs something different. It needs to be a guitar moment.
Yeah.
Come in blazing.
Yeah.
And in that moment, foot on the monitor absolutely feels appropriate. It there's a certain command of the room that it has. If you have the confidence to do it and take full ownership, absolutely.
Nice. Okay, good. That's a great answer. You all now have your permission slip to go foot up on the monitor.
I mean, don't do it in the second verse of a song of a tender ballad, but
it's for your break. It's for your highlight moment. So I want to talk to you now about monitors, just as a sort of.
Hold on, let's recut that. I know it's live, but we're just going to pretend that we're. Don't put your foot up on the monitor on the second verse if you're doing ironic live, okay? See, I did the tie-in. We're trying to script.
Yeah.
I like the live edit. It's cool.
We'll cut it in real time like Rick Glassman. So the monitor mix. What do you have? What do you have in your monitor mix? Because it's sort of like a personal preference thing.
Sure.
What's your personal preference there?
My preference is different in each band. So with Wolfpack, what I have in the monitor is basically like an album mix with 15% more guitar and more overheads.
Okay.
And I actually probably pull the vocals back a little bit. I definitely want to hear where the vocalists are at and feel where their phrasing is and how I can fit in with it. But with the tour that we just did, there was like 7 live vocal mics on stage, and it just started to get a little bit too roomy for me. So I pulled those back a little bit. When I play Cory Wong shows, I'm not referring to myself in the third person. I'm referring to the band Cory Wong, okay? They are 2 separate entities. Again, it helps my mental health when somebody online says, Cory Wong sucks. It's like they're not saying me. Like they just didn't like the song they heard. Okay, it's just a good mental health tip. Yeah. So when I play in the band Cory Wong, it's similar, but I actually have a little bit more of the drums because the drums are a little more active, and where we're placing the subdivision, we're constantly negotiating. Yeah. And fortunately, Pitar, the drummer that plays with me, he and I have played together forever, so we feel time and we feel subdivision in the same place, but at any given night, we might be feeling a little rushy or behind, and we compensate for each other. So because there's so much subdivision in that, I like to have a fair amount of the drums to make sure that I'm locking that in.
Yeah. And so, like, can you impart, this is words of wisdom from Cory Wong. You're on stage sometimes with like 15 other musicians, sometimes it's just 3 or 4. Why is it so important to key in and listen to the other players while you're on the stage?
Well, first off, it helps me understand how I function within the whole of the song, or how I function within the role of what's happening. Because especially in the studio, if we're coming up with parts and we're playing a song and I'm not hearing what the keyboard player is doing, I have no idea if what I'm playing is getting in the way of that, or if what they're playing is getting in the way of me. And it's just important to understand, okay, this I can hear everybody, so I know how what I'm playing works with what this person is playing and what this person is playing. So if I don't have the percussionist in my in-ears, I have no idea if her and I are locking up in the same way, subdivision-wise. Or it might be, oh, wow, like there's something that's really cool there that I've been missing out on.
Yeah.
Let's feature that. Or sometimes it's like, oh, I'm playing this pattern on the and you're playing on, E and. Let's adjust. Like, which one should we do? Either's fine. Let's just commit to one. So as long as we're listening to each other and have the awareness of what everybody's doing, then it really tightens the arrangements as well. Because I like to think of in everything that I'm doing as an arranger as well. Because when things line up, either they're synced or they're intentionally different, that's really where great music happens.
Yeah. So for you, for a tone, like let's go back to, I saw it's awesome video. You're playing in the anechoic chamber at Electro-Voice. Yes. That is as dry as a tone can get.
Yes.
So I want you to tell us about sort of the beauty of a dry, clean guitar tone and what that sort of reveals for you or for any player.
Yeah, I mean, there's some prime examples with Nile Rodgers and Prince, a lot of the early Prince stuff, just plugging direct into an SSL, right? They use an SSL? Or an API. Okay. Yeah. It's Minneapolis cat. Prince is such a dope guitar player. He honestly should be the one doing this clinic, but... Nile Rodgers plugging direct into a console, that sort of thing is just, it's right there. It's right in your face, and I like that sound. A lot of the Dave Williams stuff on the Quincy Jones productions, a lot of Paul Jackson Jr.'s guitar playing is like that. And it's just, to me, it's for effect. It feels like it's right here. It almost feels like the rhythm is bass. And I like that a lot of times. And sometimes it is dry, but it doesn't feel up close, and that's actually where I use a compressor to make it a little more punchy.
Cool.
The attack and the punch kind of brings it forward. We're losing this is like almost the opposite of anechoic chamber in here because there's a lot of reflections, and the guitars themselves that have acoustic qualities to them, when I play, it makes the strings resonate, and then we have all these sympathetic vibrations of... Like, if I were to play in E flat right now, it would probably, at some point, if I was playing loud enough in E flat, it would sound weird in this room because all these guitars are tuned to E, and then we'd have these clashing frequencies, and those guitars over there would resonate more, and it would just... But maybe nobody else would care, but it would drive me nuts.
Yes.
So I'm not playing in E flat today.
One anecdote from myself, closing the store, when I used to work in the store at Guitar Center, it's the end of the night, you go into the acoustic room, you can just go in there and sing, and then all the guitars will just sing along with you. It's a really cool time.
It's so dope.
So next time you're in the acoustic room and you have it to yourself, try it out. It's really fun.
Just play a song in G, just strum some cowboy chords or whatever, like campfire chords in G. Oh, that room sounds so dope.
So going all the way back now to dry and focused, the guitar tone itself doesn't really have any sort of creativity in terms of adding another thing on top of it, like with a pedal. But it does have this creativity in terms of, like, you can really hear in finer details what's happening with your hands on the strings. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. I disagree.
Okay.
But partially because you can do so many things with the tone, like not even just... So right now I have a dry signal. This bird's off. We're just hearing. It's just a dry. That sounds way different than... Or... really can be such a percussive instrument, or it can be melodic, or it can be chordal. So with a dry guitar, they're actually, what I think it does is it unlocks a lot of creativity for people because you have to find ways to get different sounds. So sometimes the way that I play guitar, honestly, many of the songs I play on, I will think of myself as a percussion player.
Oh,
like
yeah.
I'm playing bongos on this song. That's
Yeah.
And I'm giving you zero information about the chord or the melody. It could literally be, or it could be.
Yeah.
You know, different function, but whatever note you choose to use. But you can also create little hooks within that. Like Dave Williams does a lot of that stuff on Quincy Jones produced records, Michael Jackson stuff. But yeah, you can get creative with using your fingers or using a pick, different pickups, where you're playing on here. You can go. Where you go. You know, that whole thing, or even just playing. Because my phone would go through those speakers.
Oh, that's
Michael's
right.
phone.
That's the age that we live in now. So when we go all the way back to the beginning of Cory Wong's first rig, like
Yes.
what was your first guitar amp or effects sort of setup that you had to start with?
The first guitar I got was a traveling Wilburys Gretsch guitar
Cool.
from Pawn America in Fridley, Minnesota. $45. It had 4 strings on it. And it had 4 strings on it for months. I didn't even get. Finally, I was. I'm trying to play these rage tunes, and I need these other strings. So I ended up buying them. The amp was a Crate 112.
Sick.
Who knows what? The one that was in all the pawn shops in the 90s.
Yeah.
You all know exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, there's so many
Everybody
people
knows
nodding
it,
like,
yeah.
oh, I know. I had that Crate one. Yeah. And then I graduated to a Crate 212 something. I don't know. It was just. Yeah, but I went to Guitar Center with my dad. He's like, "Here, this sounds great. This is a good. Okay, cool." And my first pedal was a DoD distortion.
Sick.
It was a bit much for
grunge?
me. It was. Yeah, that's the stone-looking one. It's
Yeah.
good. Yeah. And then it was a little much, so I returned it and got the DoD Overdrive, the
Nice.
yellow one.
Yeah, really cool.
I had a Morley Wah, loved that pedal, and same pawn shop in Fridley, I found a DoD Chorus, $18. I was so stoked. So that was my rig for a while. It was
Yeah, that's amazing.
Overdrive, Chorus, Wah, and then eventually I got a Stratocaster because I was starting to play a lot of guitar and get a little more serious about it, and I was frustrated because it wasn't. I mean, those traveling Wilburys Gretsch guitars can be great, just like any guitar can be great, and any guitar can be bad if it hasn't been kept up and has all of its strings, and, all of that. So finally, I saved up my shoveling money because that's what we do in Minnesota, and I begged my dad to help me buy a new guitar. So we went to the Guitar Center in Roseville, Minnesota. Not lying, it still exists here. Not here. Here on planet Earth, I mean. Went to the Guitar Center in Roseville, and my dad's like, all right, time to get a Strat.
Nice.
Wait, what do you mean, time to get a Strat? Jimi Hendrix, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Eric Clapton, your guy John Frusciante you can't stop talking about. He's naming all these people. I'm like, all right, we're getting a Strat. Let's go. So, yeah, I got a Strat, and then it's been my
That's
axe
cool.
ever since, yeah.
Yeah, I had a very similar in 1998 to age myself. I had a white Strat and a Crate like GTX something or other 212 combo. It's just how you did it, you know. And so, what did you learn from dealing with that rig or maybe playing along with the songs that you were listening to in terms of either what you knew or didn't know about gear from that first set of gear?
Everything was great when I was learning. I went and got guitar tab books. I used to go and get guitar tab books from the library, or I'd come to Guitar Center and buy them. One Hot Minute, Chili Peppers album, got the bass and the guitar book, learned them top to bottom on both instruments. Then I got Blood Sugar Sex Magic, learned it top to bottom. I'm on a roll here. I'm feeling good, feeling great. I go buy the Rage Against the Machine Evil Empire guitar tab book. I'm just like, this book is telling me, like, this is fret 5, string 3, or whatever. It's like, this does not sound anything like the album. You know, there was some sort of thing that was tabbed out. You're like, you know, or like a whammy pedal thing. It's like, I'm like, I swear the note's moving. I've trusted every other tab book. And I didn't realize, oh, yeah, I need the pedals to get those sounds. So then I started diving into what made Morello's thing really unique and how he really used gear to express his artistry.
Yeah.
And it was cool. So I started diving more into pedals and, yeah, just finding the difference between phaser, flanger, reverb, chorus, all these things. And, yeah, that was an eye-opening experience trying to play along with Evil Empire. Mm-hmm. With a overdrive, wah, and chorus. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Red Hot Chili Peppers sort of is something I think that we would assume that Cory Wong listened to coming up.
Sure.
Maybe Rage Against the Machine too, but what were some of those other early influences, and what were some that maybe we would be surprised by?
Sure. I think, okay, you might be surprised when I say it, but I will explain some of my playing and give you some examples of what I drew from some of these inspirations, and then it'll probably make a little more sense. So in a lot of the music that I play, it's this high energy funk thing. So really when I talk about it, the simple way is the energy of what I play comes from growing up listening to Green Day and Rancid and Blink-182. This high energy pedal on the floor, just driving forward, just pedal on the gas. The feel and the groove of the music that I make comes from listening to the Chili Peppers and Jamiroquai and Prince and Earth, Wind and Fire and that sort of thing. The harmonic choices, the chordal choices that I make come from growing up listening to jazz, listening to Weather Report, listening to R&B music, like a lot of stuff from Earth, Wind and Fire or Gap Band or Prince, mixed with listening to Keith Jarrett and Weather Report and things like that, Ralph Towner, just stuff that you wouldn't think to put all together, but cool. Like you learn about harmony and what chords can really do for an emotional impact in a song. And then the melodic sense of what I do comes from growing up listening to a lot of the great pop music from the late 90s, early 2000s that was just around in the zeitgeist that I enjoyed listening to.
Nice. So like for the punkier stuff, your right hand, definitely it makes sense with the punky and the funky, like a lot of energy goes in there.
Yeah, and there's a couple moves that I do that are very downstroke dependent. Like for it to sound right, it needs to be all downstrokes. In the same way that when you play Master of Puppets, it has to be downstrokes. It's it. It doesn't work if you go.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the same. I do not have the rig to play this, but some of the way that I play. Dependent on downstrokes.
Yeah.
And I learned that from playing metal tunes as a 6th grader and 7th grader. Like, oh, if you play all downstrokes, it really changes the energy and the articulation and the drive of something.
Yeah.
Listening to Green Day playing that sort of thing. A lot of ska music that I grew up listening to has similar things to like not what Nile Rodgers would do, but just different chord changes.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of the like. Where it's chords and the chucks mixed in there, you know, it's. Or whatever. Sorry, I messed up the progression. But that. It's not that different than. Same principles apply. It's just different grooves. The same left hand muting techniques. Same sort of right hand motor that just goes.
Yeah. Well, talking about the motor and maybe your internal clock, do you feel like that is something that you were born with, or did you just develop it? Like, how did you get to this sort of maybe, I don't know, metronomic sense of timing on your right hand?
I used to lie when I was asked this question. But the reality is, okay, sorry. Start over, take two. I'm not.
You're not going to say anything about Alanis on this one.
I don't think anybody just has great time when they're born. You know, some people, sure, like they have a better sense of rhythm or groove because of what they've listened to growing up and the way that they feel music. There's a lot that has to do with the influences that you have and how you feel time. People that listen to certain styles of music from a certain era are going to feel time differently. Like if you grew up with a time feel from if your metronome and a lot of the music that you listen to was Bernard Purdie playing the drums, it's going to feel, your internal clock is going to feel a little different than if you grew up listening to Avicii or something. One is not better than the other. Objectively, it's not better than the other. It's just what is more appropriate for the thing that you're doing, and what are you aiming for? Like, you know, Purdy's aiming for double 17s on the dartboard, and Avicii's going straight down the middle. It's very metronomic. Not all of it, but most of it is, and a lot of EDM music is very metronomic. So a lot of folks that are growing up now in a metronome era of pop music, a lot of us just have better consistency in time. Again, better, more accurate version of that. Okay, fine, but that can also be a bad thing if you don't know how to play with the time and bring in some sort of emotional impact to the phrasing of it. So the thing that I used to not tell people, because I was like, oh yeah, it's just like listening and practicing a lot with a metronome. I grew up playing in drumline in high school, and I did a little in college as well, playing in the marching band and playing drumline. And actually a lot of the drumline exercises that I learned, accent shifting patterns, little drum exercises, I would transfer those over to guitar because it really helped me build my chops as a drummer and also my internal clock. But one of the things that one of my drumline instructors asked me to do, he's like, a little secret of the pros, not everybody can hang with this, but give this a try this week. And I was the only one in the drumline that actually did it, and I was so proud of it. I slept with a metronome underneath my pillow for 2 straight weeks. 120 BPM, 110 BPM, 100 BPM, 140 BPM, 60 BPM, 90 BPM. I'd switch it up every night, and I would just learn to not be fazed by it. Absolutely nuts. Maybe it had something, but you know what? I was telling this story once, and Lewis Cole was like, "Oh, dude, yeah, I used to do that all the time." Like, okay, maybe there's something to it. So, you're a drummer. Maybe try sleeping with a metronome under your pillow for a couple weeks and see if it does anything. I can sleep through a lot of things. So, some people, if there's a clock ticking in the room, it drives them nuts. Totally. But try putting it under your pillow, loud, and you just have to learn to become one with it.
Yeah, for me, it was a DR550, a little Boss drum machine. And it had a little visualization. Yes. And so I'd watch the little dots go across the thing. And I go, I'm looking at the rhythm.
Yes.
This is it. It happened. So
Yeah, and also understanding your tendencies. So many of us as guitar players have a tendency to rush, and we don't realize it. Or somebody will say, oh, you're rushing. And we're like, no, I'm not. I'm playing in time. But if you record yourself, nowadays it's so easy to record into a DAW along to a metronome or a drum machine. You look at how exactly your transients are lining up on the grid, and you're going to have your answer of where your time feel is and where your tendencies are on things. And it's like, oh, every time I hit a backbeat, I tend to pull it back, and that's why I like the feel of that. Cool. Or every time I get to the front of this phrase, I'm pushing it, and then it's slowing down. Is it because of my awareness of time, or is it because my chops are not at a place where the facility can handle it? You know, so then it just informs you on what you either need to practice or what you need to be aware of.
yeah, you have sort of taken on this role of teacher for a lot of us. Like you literally do guitar lessons. You perform live and sort of demonstrate how to do it. But you're doing a video series with EV, Everything Explained. That's more on the technical side of all of this stuff. So it's a two-parter. The first is, where do you think that sort of inclination to be a teacher comes from in you? And then in Everything Explained, what's some sort of weird technical thing that you learned that you found to be pretty interesting that we should all know?
The Everything Explained series is really just a bunch of questions I've had in my notes app for the last several years. And when I became friends with a lot of the engineers at EV, I realized they have the answers to these questions that have been in my phone for so long. So we started a video series so I could learn. And, you know, I did some studying on them before we went in. We said, okay, this video is going to be about dB versus SPL. This is going to be about phase. This video is going to be about anechoic chambers. What do they do? What's their purpose? Who cares? And then I got the answers. Like, why do these things even exist? And the guy's like, well, we do it because we don't have extra speakers. Other people do it because, believe it or not, the toilet companies get complaints if their toilets are too quiet, so they have to dial in how loud it is when they flush. This is not a joke. A toilet, Kohler will like rent out an anechoic chamber for days and do different.
Just flush?
Yeah, they'll flush toilets. Like, what is the human ear experiences like the correct volume level for a toilet flushing? Because it's like, man, my toilet's not working. It's like, no, dude, like we solved this. Like, it's a silent toilet.
Yeah.
Like we solved it. But we don't want that as humans. As consumers, we don't actually want a silent toilet.
Yeah.
And they discovered that, and then they thought, well, yeah, let's spend some money on an anechoic chamber. Anyways,
Yeah.
I did learn that as part of the process of this video series. But these
Yeah.
things are interesting to me.
Yeah.
I think ultimately the reason why I'm doing that series is because I'm very curious. And if I have these questions, I'm certain that other people have these questions as well. And when it comes to the teaching thing, I have a degree in music. I took a lot of music lessons, and I still occasionally will study under people. Or honestly, it's probably the main reason why I have my podcast also, is because I get to interview other amazing guitar players, and I get to ask them all the things that I would ask if I were to pay for a lesson with them. And, you know, that curiosity and that eagerness to learn, I try to make sure that I keep that alive in myself and that I am available for that to other people as well. So I made a guitar course because a lot of people were asking me, hey, do you do guitar lessons? Like, I would love to. I love teaching, but I just don't have the time to do it. And then I realized a lot of people would ask a lot of the same questions, so I made a guitar course with the stuff that I expect people would want to know from me about the way that I play and how I approach guitar. So it's fun to me because also in an age where we can literally be live streaming right now, how cool is it that we can ask people that we look up to?
Yeah.
And, you know, if I was 17 years old again and had an opportunity to take a John Schofield course for $150 on the internet, I'd be like, are you kidding me? Yes, that would be a dream. So I think it's really fun to be able to give back to the music community what I either got or wished that I had when I was growing up learning.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, for me, doing things like this, it's just really interesting to get into the head of some of the coolest players out there. A couple weeks ago, we had a guy named Nate Smith. I don't know if you've heard of him.
I have.
And, you know, he told this really fun story about before he played MSG with you guys. He was just like, well, there's this drum kit. It's just here, and you're going to play that, and then your guys are going to play live. But in terms of, I'm going somewhere with this, I promise. In terms of what you have learned in interacting with so many of these different people, what have you learned that's maybe universal about like a good collaborator?
Understanding your role in a setting and recognizing when it's not what you normally do and being able to adapt to it. And then also just being totally down to explore a new part of your artistry while another person explores a part of theirs. And to not have any ego involved in, well, like, I got to get mine in if you're going to get yours in. That's just not really going to make the best art. It's like, we're trying to make this song, or we're trying to make this band, or just play this gig or whatever. And right now, the best thing that I can do is this for it. And part of that means sometimes stepping out and sometimes stepping back and letting the other person do that. And certain songs you're going to do more than others, and certain bands you're going to do more than others. Fine, cool.
Yeah.
I say that with an air of like, who cares? Partially because I feel like I am the biggest piece of my musicality and what I do as a profession that I feel I hesitate to use the word lucky with, but the thing that I feel very fortunate is that I feel like I have a sound on the instrument. I have a voice. And I think a lot of people who don't feel like they have a recognizable voice or a singular thing, then they just constantly feel unheard.
Yeah.
So if you recognize and can find something that's compellingly and uniquely yours, then you're okay just knowing what that is. Like I've done these sit-ins. I did this thing with, it was like Joe Satriani and Steve Lukather and John Five and Eric Gales, like Mateus Asado, all these just absolute shredders. It's like, all right, everybody go up and play your solo. And people are like, dude, you got to solo after X. Dude, you're going to solo right after Satriani. Like, what are you going to do? I'm like, honestly, I don't know. I'm just going to do what I do, and he's going to do what he does. Like, I'm going to sound like me. He's going to sound like him. And it's going to be cool, you know? It's not a competition. It's just we're playing music. And sure, it can be some sort of macho, like, who can play faster? But that's, if you're with other people that are good collaborators, they and you recognize that it's just about playing and expressing who you are in your voice.
Nice. That's a good...
I know what it's supposed to sound like, or I know what it's supposed to feel like. I know what it's supposed to sound like, or I know what it's supposed to feel like, in my opinion, because my name is on the pedal. So I get to be the one to decide what's right. You know, it's one of those few times where you get to say, like, this is what's right, because somebody told me I get to say that. Great. You know, a lot of times things are subjective, and of course it is, but for what I wanted, I plugged into a bunch of DIs. And you'd think, like, what's the difference between the radial or the blah, 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 or the, You'd be surprised. You plug them in. Same, I'm not joking. I do this in many other aspects of my life. If you haven't gathered by now, I'll do like a water shootout. I'll bring my family out, like Christmas time last year. I got 2 bottles of Aquafina. I got Fiji. Yeah. I got Nestle. I've got Smart Water. I've got the Icelandic. We got the Voss water. You'd be surprised. These waters all taste and feel different in your mouth.
True.
Okay?
Yes.
This sort of thing, do it with DIs, and you'll be surprised. Like, I don't know, it's just water. Like, no. This isn't just water. Like, they're different. They feel different, and they sound different, and they do different things. So part of it is just having many things to reference, and then finding what you actually like. When it comes to digital modeling, the biggest, most important thing is, do I know what a real Marshall sounds and feels like? Do I know what a real Twin feels and sounds like? A Princeton feels and sounds like? And what is my preference? What do I like about them? Yeah. And what are the challenges that I run into when I'm playing through a Twin? I got this sucker on like 0.5 volume. And it's screaming at you, isn't it? But cool, like, but it's clean and it sounds great. So, you know, there's certain things that you just got to be aware of. So the DI, It's the relentless pursuit for finding. I don't know.
It is,
Sorry,
yeah.
I sound like a nut job after this. I realize I'm coming in hot with the resonant frequency at the beginning of it. I'm talking about sleeping with the metronome, doing a water taste test.
That's, yeah.
Everybody's like, I gotta get out of here. You want me to take advice from you? We're like, really? The guy that's, oh, okay.
Well, it's really not that far off. I mean, as somebody who can get into gear headism,
Yeah.
I find myself straying into that path and then just going like, whoa, stop. Everybody stop. Let's zoom back out. Let's not do that. But do you find that you do that beyond the guitar gear world? You already mentioned water. Do you do it for like photo gear, for fashion, for other different aspects of your life?
Unfortunately, yes. Yeah, I did a peanut butter shootout on tour last tour. We did an avocado shootout. We did a spicy chips shootout. The food realm. You'd be surprised. Okay? Your brain will do weird tricks. We did a pizza shootout.
Yeah.
All the hot pizza chains, all the boutique places in your hometown. You should do this. It's so much fun. Get a party together. It's like the best. Maybe none of you have any interest, but I promise you it is fun and informative. But yes, I do this in a lot of aspects. When it comes to the wardrobe for my band when we tour, I don't know. I'll have a vision for something, and then I'll order a bunch of different options, and then I'll take photos of it. I say, wow, that looks really good. What does it look like when 10 people are wearing it on stage together? So then I'll like mock it up. It's like, oh man, that's just kind of too much. It looks dope if it's 2 people or 4 people, but 10 people in that outfit's like. So yeah, I do that sort of thing, and I don't have that level of attention to detail in every aspect of my life, but the curiosity side of things is kind of what drives it. And then it's like, oh, okay, now I know. Okay, cool.
Well, in terms of doing A/B tests or ABC tests, you have a preset that's built into the Evolve 30M.
Yes.
And so how does one develop a preset that's inside of a PA tower?
Similar to like the DI on the compressor that Brian was asking and talking about, I oftentimes will plug into a console at a studio and just play. Like we're talking about like Prince and the API or the SSL, and it has a certain thing to it. And I'll notice, oh yeah, I normally like to tweak this sort of thing. If I'm going direct, I like to pull a little bit of 2K down, or in my case, with the way that I play, I sometimes, the attack is a bit much in 4K, just the way that I play. And I have certain compression settings that I like to have to get it a little punchier. And the things that we're used to out of a guitar amp, adding some body to it. Because normally if you just plug in direct, it just sounds like this. It's a little thin, like, I don't know. But a certain type of EQ shape and compression can really shape the tone, where if you're just going in direct, it can be pretty cool. So Evie said that they were working on this project, and they said, hey, if you're plugging direct in, what would you do? Like, I'll show you exactly what I'll do. And they're like, okay. Well, what if you could dive deeper? I was like, huh. And the engineers got in, and we started measuring and doing all the stuff, and I found some stuff that I really liked. It's like, I would plug right into this.
That's cool. Yeah. Well, we do want to hear that. I don't know if we need to do we need to do some cable swaps?
Yeah, let's do some cable swapping. I'll show you. Yeah, and I'll play something also because, come on up. Yeah, come on up, Mike.
We'll do some cable swaps, but while we're doing cable swaps, we'll talk about the EVERSE 8. This adorable little buddy. So with this little guy, you're running this just for funsies on the bus or backstage.
Yeah, it's wireless, and so I can Bluetooth into it wirelessly and just listen to music. It's great. Don't have to plug it in. It's got, I don't know how many hours of whatever it's got.
Yeah.
I've never run
a
out.
long time.
And then I can also just plug my guitar into it, and I'll plug my pedal board, or I'll have something like even just an acoustic guitar to plug into it for a jam session, and they sound great. They're wireless. I don't have to worry about. I don't know. I used to, for a while, I was looking for an amp that could be battery powered that I could just keep in the car if I ever just hanging with friends and want to jam. And for a while, it was like, I think the only thing available was the Roland Cube Street or something.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Cool, fine, whatever. But it never felt like it was loud enough for me.
Yeah.
It sounds great, but it wasn't loud enough. So this thing sounds great. It gets pretty freaking loud.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a nice sounding speaker. It can tip back like this.
It's cute.
Yeah.
And so, do you practice? This is an interesting question for somebody who plays hundreds of shows per year.
Yeah.
Do you practice if you're playing so much on the road?
Practicing for me looks a lot different now than it did when I was reading guitar tab books as a 7th grader, or when I was in college practicing 8 hours a day, learning all the, 3-finger scales, up, blah, 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 diagonal scales, Lydian, Mixolydian, Lydian, doing all that stuff. That was learning and mastering the fretboard. I had some great teachers that really helped me understand the fretboard and figure out how to organize it in my brain. And not just see it as shapes, but also understand the music part of it. That was a certain type of practicing. Now my practicing consists a little more of chops maintenance and technical facility maintenance. It's learning material for things that are coming up. We're like this week we did 11 new songs for the Wolfpack run that we had never played before. Learning the songs, coming up with parts, and also alternative versions of parts if somebody was gonna, here's 3 options I have for every song. It really helps me to know the songs inside and out. So by practicing a lot of it, so built into that practicing is ear training, learning songs and that sort of thing. And then also I like to save a lot of space for creativity and just exploring playing stuff and letting my fingers and my ear go where they feel it wants to go. And another version of practicing is I'll listen to like a Joe Pass album, solo guitar album, not try to learn any of the songs, but just then go pick up my guitar and just try to play things that sound like that sound good to me or something, listen to a certain type of music and just try to mimic it in a way that I would do it myself.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a thing that I've never personally tried, but it does sound good to just get the impression of somebody else and then go try to play something. Sounds pretty amazing. Yeah. But let's hear some guitar playing.
Okay, so I'll play you something also with effects and how I do a lot of things. Sometimes I'm going mono, sometimes I'm going stereo. What I'm going to do now is I'll play this little intro to a song that I've been doing on tour. And it really utilizes the stereo field of effects. And if you have a good PA, a good rig, stereo effects can just create such a cool effect. And I'm going to be mumbling because I have to concentrate on tuning.
And we do the tuning song.
Yes. By the way, also, speaking of knowing what it actually sounds like, am I right in that when you were touring with Pharrell, did you have 2 distressors on top of your matchless amps?
Wow.
That's the next level of, studio distress.
I can take them, so why not?
Like, that's really knowing the sound of it, like, that's the sound I want, and I'm going to...
It's kind of become, like, that sound of those I've gotten so used to. Probably just, that's what I was going to ask you about, like, the compressor pedal. It's probably kind of just become part of the sound for everything.
Yes.
The real amps and the modelers.
Yeah, just, if you find something like that, it's like, well, this is my sound now. Unfortunately for me, it's a little pedal and not 2 rack unit distressors. What do you... That is so dope, and I also feel so bad for you because that's so much, that's expensive gear to be like, I need the distressors and the backline list. Like, oh, dang, dude, where are we going to find that? But anyways, replicating other gear. So I'll play you something that will really showcase the stereo field and the sonic spectrum of these, along with the preset on there. But also really a big part of what I'm playing here has a stereo delay thing. And I like a bunch of different versions of stereo delays. And, you know, obviously there's whatever it is that the Edge uses that every other guitar player knows, and I forget what it is, but cool.
Max knows wherever he is. There he is. What is it, Max? The Edge delay. STD 3000. There it is.
STD 3000?
Yeah, it's
What? Oh my gosh. Sorry. I was like, wow, that's what it's called? Okay, my bad. Again, I'm thinking out loud here. Like, wow, okay. Take two. What?
take two.
Yeah, good one. But I also liked the DL4, the Line 6 thing for a long time. The thing I didn't love about that is I couldn't see the BPM.
Oh yeah.
So then I was using the eventide time factor, but there was things about the sound of the DL4 that I liked, but I liked that I knew I was 150 BPM.
Yeah.
So I could be as neurotic as I wanted about that. You know, if we're playing something to click, that I knew the delays weren't going to mess with what I'm putting through it. So I was basically recreating that experience for myself when making this delay patch.
Nice.
Which is, I believe, it's a quarter note and an eighth note. That's all.
Nice.
Yeah. Let's See, all the guitars wake up when you hit that low.
Yeah.
All All the guitarists want to sing along there in the room.
So first of all, that was beautiful.
Thank you.
And I noticed a few things. I noticed, one, it sounds enormous in the room. I don't know if you guys can tell. The whole room is shaking from the power of these Evolve 30s, and it sounds crystal clear and super full. So how does it feel maybe playing with, how many watts are these? Thousands of watts? Enough. So versus maybe what you might be used to headroom-wise on just like a normal guitar amplifier. Can you talk a little bit about just having that space?
Yeah, a lot of people ask about watts. And like guitar players, when it comes to tube amps, your watts is way different than when it comes to watts for a PA speaker. So honestly, I have no idea how many watts these are. It's just, is it clean enough?
Yeah.
Is it clean at the volume level that I want? Great. I've played through, a super reverb, not quite clean enough for me. Twin reverb, absolutely clean enough. Deluxe, if I'm playing in a loud room, probably not quite clean enough.
Yeah.
If we're playing in a room like this, a deluxe would be fine. I probably should be in a deluxe in this size room, but the Twin's fun, isn't it? It's just, it's a little fuller. It pushes a little more air with the 212s. But I think a little less about watts, and I'm more about clean volume. And I don't know. I have nothing to add to that other than
Totally.
I've been surprised by wattage. I'm like, really? This is 100 watts? Like, this is screaming loud. Or really, this is 250 watts, and it's mushy, and it's like breaking up in a weird way, and it's not even that loud. So I don't know. I don't get it. Watts, I know tube watts, 40 watts, it's going to be a lot louder than 40 watts in something like this, but I honestly don't care about watts.
Yeah, it sounded loud
Until I
and
start
clean.
complaining. And then they're like, you need more watts. That's your problem. You don't care about watts. I'm like, oh, okay, cool.
Maybe watts will be everything explained.
We should. We should do a watts, everything explained. Mark it down.
So the other thing I noticed is not only in sort of the waka wakas, chukka chukkas with your pick hand, even just the picking of your hand, the timing it's all in there.
Yeah.
So and the accents are in there. There's like a little hit on the downbeat, and there's the timekeeping underneath. Can you talk a little bit about your approach to fingerstyle playing, or even just the timekeeping underneath of the sort of accented patterns?
Yes, in the same way a lot of drummers think about the big beats in the kick and snare, the like that's your anchor points of the groove, and then there's the undercurrent of the whatever
ghost notes.
Yeah, and or just the hi-hat pattern. It could be, but that starts to feel a little robotic, and you could call it lifeless. But if you start to add a little accent pattern to give it phrasing, then it comes to life rather than just going. Feels a little more like a mantra rather than just something that's than just like something that's continuously moving and hard to come back to. So I think in a lot of the way that I approach grooves and playing is more just thinking about phrasing and how to enhance the groove of something by adding a little bit of phrasing. So it's big beats, and then there's undercurrent, and how much undercurrent information do I need to give versus how much should I let you as a listener use your imagination to fill in the gaps, because that can actually be a really fun thing to do. Like the tune that I was starting to play, it's called Meditation. It's really harmonically quite simple. I'm playing playing an interval of a tenth. There I play a chord. Right? Really, there's only two notes at a time, but because of our history in Western culture, you probably actually hear this. Like there's notes that your brain is filling in or whatever that is kind of fun to allow the listener to do.
Yeah.
Because in a lot of ways, it's how you can make engaging music where you allow the listener to participate. Some music, I'm guilty of it too. A lot of music is like, here's what I want to tell you. But some things, I want you to be a part of the conversational listener as the listener, and it can be really engaging if it's done very purposefully, and if you know or assume what people might think. And you can do the same thing in phrasing. Like, so if the whole time I've been going, I can now all of a sudden go, I'm letting the delay do some of the work. But also, you're still hearing the momentum of it because I've established that sort of thing. But you're feeling it in a different way because I'm not feeding it to you as, I wouldn't say aggressively, I'm just not feeding it as...
It's sort of implied kind of thing. Like even in a song like Airplane Mode, there's all this harmonic movement. A lot of your tunes, they have this cool... There's like two notes maybe moving around together. Can you show us a little bit of that and then maybe help us understand how you put that together?
Yes. Do you want me to just play that song?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Great. Also, that guy was on a little bit. Same sort of concept with the tenths. I'm playing tenths on it. This So really what I'm thinking is... That's what I'm thinking in my head, but I'm using other things to kind of walk up and get there, other tools that I've heard organ players do or piano players do or other guitar players. So I'll play this tune, Airplane Mode. But yeah, a lot of it is, like there's full band versions of this, but it also kind of works as a solo guitar tune.
I think
you can kind of, again, fill in some of the gaps if you want, you know. And if I start tapping my foot, it also gives a certain, you will subconsciously feel where the backbeat is in a way if I didn't do it. So that's that. Thank you.
Yeah.
I messed up the form there. Tell the engineers I messed up the form.
Take two.
Because I realized, I'm doing the backbeat thing with my hand. It's not constant, but it's just giving you that information. And then when I don't do it, we've listened to so much backbeat music in our lives. It's like, I assume you're probably going to fill in the gaps when I don't play it. Because that's what I'm doing.
Yeah. And hitting that big open E, the big fundamental tone here in the room coming through the evolves is just like powerful.
Feels good.
Yeah, feels great.
Yeah. Play guitar in a guitar center.
I mean, that's
I did before people got here. I doubt they cleared it for the live stream, but I paid my respects and played Sweet Child of Mine in a guitar center.
That's true.
I did do it, yes. Yeah. Even the professionals, they're just like us. They play Sweet Child of Mine at guitars. I had to, right? Yeah, I had to.
It's a rite of passage that we all go through. And
no shame, dude.
Yeah. It's one of the coolest.
The guy in the back is like, hey, no, you're not allowed.
Oh, man. All right. So we are getting short on time, and so we're going to get into a little bit of a lightning round here.
Come at me.
We're going to zoom out just a bit. We're going to take a couple questions from the stream.
Yes.
Tiger Palmer wants to know, what's your favorite consumer-grade EQ pedal at the moment?
This is a little self-serving in it because I had some say into the making of the pedal, but the Jackson Audio Optimist, it's a dual overdrive, but if you press two buttons, it's got an EQ function on it where it's just bass, middle, and treble. And I pull the mids up just a little bit, and it's notched it just the right in the tone, right place in the tone to make like a... It can make the fourth position of the Strat kind of instant John Mayer land, and it makes the second position of the Strat just much more Knopfler land.
Got it.
So it's, if I want to lean my tone towards that sort of thing, I know that little mid bump is just in the spot to do that. But honestly, there's just so many... Who makes the Para EQ? It's mostly
Empress, right?
Empress.
Right?
Yeah. Light blue, colorful stuff. That's a great EQ pedal also. Cool. For acoustic guitar, the Grace, what's the one that all the Punch Brothers and everybody uses these? The Grace something. It's like it's a gray pedal with a bunch of knobs.
Somebody's going to drop it in the chat.
Yeah.
Somebody who knows.
But for acoustic instruments, it's great. Yeah.
Well, the EQ thing brings up a question for me, and that is, what is your approach to creating like a solo sound? Is it like a mid bump, I'm stepping forward kind of thing versus your rhythm tone?
Yeah, I have different gain stages. Now, a lot of people probably heard people talk about gain staging because it's also a way for pedal companies to sell more pedals. In order to gain stage, you need multiple pedals. Yeah. But I swear by it. I didn't need to buy more pedals to do gain staging here. For me, I have, rather than one really big overdrive or distortion, I just have three kind of light ones. And this is nothing new. I didn't invent this. I probably read it in some magazine somewhere. But I have my clean tone if I'm going... That's adding... Then I add another stage. Just if I need it, if I need like 5.5 gears in the car, I'll go there. And then see, it's doing that woo thing. Yeah. That's how you know the amp's responding. When you do that, it's what is that?
Yeah.
That's what we need to do on everything he's playing. What is that little
some kind of
low-end zipper?
It's like opposite harmonics
it's like a
or something.
Zipper being zipped up at the core of the earth while I'm... Like the note's going down, but the thing's going up like 3 octaves low. What is happening there? Somebody's probably in the comments like, well, actually, I'll do it. But a lot of times with my lead tone, I thin it out because really thick overdrives, it's just the information that I'm giving to the listener when I'm playing lead guitar doesn't really need that low end. And actually a lot of, even if you think about the chugging low guitars, like yes, it's low, but it probably doesn't have quite as much low end in the tone as you might think if you were to actually solo the instrument and listen to it. But also, yes, I will typically, like if I'm using a patch like this for huge thick sound, but I might go, but if it might not cut the same as if I go to the bridge pickup. Like down in there, it gets a little bit muddy. There it sounds a little too metal-y to me. There it sounds good. So depending on what I'm going for, I'm just kind of, what kind of vibe is this?
Yeah.
Like, getting a little too much into 80s rock sound than what I want. And sometimes it's like, no, we need 80s rock. We need 80s rock. Go, go, go. But yeah, normally when I turn on the overdrives, a little more mid-rangey thing. That's the classic tube screamer sort of thing where it adds drive and a little bit of a mid. Yeah.
Max chimed in. He wants to know about the feel difference, the feel of plugging direct into an amp versus plugging into a modeler with full range speakers or direct into the Evolve 30M. Is there a noticeable feel difference for you, particularly in something like SAG versus a tube amp kind of thing?
Yeah. The SAG portion I don't run into as much because so much of what I do is clean, where I think somebody like Eric Gales or Mayer or somebody like Lukather, there's a lot of other guitar players out there that are going to feel or be a little more dialed into that sort of thing. For me, the clean punchiness with a round top end but still has a point and a drive to the top end is more what I'm looking for. And I don't feel like SAG is as big of a part of that in what I do. So I'm not listening for that as much. But I do, when I'm testing stuff out, I definitely want to see if it's responding and acting the way that I would expect. And I wouldn't know if I didn't play through real tube amps for a lot of years. So again, having a bunch of real gear to play through to give you.
All right.
There we go. That's universal. That's universal. That's not.
All right. It's
not
cool.
any
I got
one
it.
person here.
I got it too. We all got it. It's silver alert. So, what note is that?
There's a few of them.
That's a good note.
Um,
Speaking of silver alerts,
yeah.
guitar tone. Am I right? All right. So let's get into the lightning round here.
Okay, but hold on.
Yes.
The real answer to that question,
Yeah.
comparing playing modeling gear versus actual amps, the one thing that people always screw up is they're like, yeah, like I turned on your plug-in on my rig at home, at my studio, and then I plugged into my stereo twin rig, and it's like, man, the twin just sounds so much bigger. Like, send me a picture of your setup. It's like, bro, you're playing through the KRK5s. You got a set of KRK5s with no subwoofer versus 4 12-inch speakers. This is not a fair comparison, okay? The KRKs sound great. Fine. There's a lot of great studio monitors out there. You got to compare this thing fairly. Put your amps in the other room, mic them however you want to mic them, record the amp, and then record yourself going direct into the thing and see how it sounds from there. Like, of course it's going to feel different in the room when you have speakers, little speakers on your desk versus huge amps on the floor that are literally shaking the ground next to you. What are we doing? It's not a fair comparison. Don't. You know, don't come at me with that.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's
That's like a, it's like a
Yeah.
silver
like
grill.
we're doing a water shootout. Why did you bring Sprite? Like this Aquafina, Fiji, Smart Water. What is Sprite doing here? This is a different category. You're going to screw up the entire palette for the rest of the people competing here. Yes, it's clear.
It's clear.
But like, do you not understand there's flavor and bubbles?
There's silica content to take into account, you know?
Hey, I'm staying out of that combo.
All right, so let's get into it. Ready?
Yeah. Lightning round.
Who are some of the players that are inspiring you right now?
Mateus Asado is incredible. I've been revisiting Jamiroquai and Rob Harris. His guitar feel is so identifiable to me. His feel is insane. Incredible guitar player, incredible parts, incredible tones. Really, really digging on that. And a guy named Ben Jones, UK cat, found this album of his called Live in London, mixtape Live in London. Other albums are cool, like studio albums are cool. Like I think a lot of people like the studio albums better, but the live album, it feels like real people playing.
Yeah.
You know.
And you're no stranger to a live album.
Yeah.
About how many live recordings? I guess maybe would you delineate some of the things that you've made as a live recording of an album versus a live album?
Yes, a live album is material that we've already done. It's like, hey, we're doing a show. But a live recording of an album is what the Fearless Flyers did for our last record, where we brought a bunch of new music, and instead of renting a studio for 3 days, we just said, hey, we're going to do the new album in front of you. Enjoy it.
Nice.
Cool. Cheer if you want. I don't care. But and then we just did the same thing with Wolfpack at the Palladium in Hollywood. 11 new songs. And at UC Theater in Berkeley.
Nice. So what predictions? We're talking about sort of futuristic setups here. This is the cutting edge of guitar technology.
Yes.
What predictions do you have for either the future of the music industry or the ways of working within the music industry?
Oof. You know, they say it gets worse before it gets better. And I'm not a curmudgeon. I mean, it's like I hear a lot of these people talk about like, oh man, back in the day, dude, when we were selling CDs, dude, we were hiding money. It's got to be the same for you guys, right? I'm like, do you realize that it's like hundreds of thousands of streams before it even remotely equals what a CD sale would be? Blah, 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 whatever. And it's fine. As a consumer, I absolutely love streaming. I can literally pull up the entirety of the musical catalog that has existed on my phone and listen to anything at any time. Incredible. Mm-hmm. But, you know, it makes it harder and harder for artists to have the resources to make the albums that they really want to, or they have to make compromises in other places, or they have to tour a lot more. And then with rising costs of tour buses and blah, 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 then the ticket prices go up, and then there's this push-pull of all these things, and it's in a weird time right now in the music industry. I'm totally down. I'm here for it. I'm having fun. I don't know anything different. I don't know what it's like to sell 10,000 CDs. Okay, whatever. Like I'm doing what I love to do in the streaming era. Cool. I'm happy to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Happy to hopefully leave my mark. But I do really feel like creativity is going to take a huge upswing. Because of so many of these tools that are available to us now, if people are really exploring their artistry and exploring who they are as people and having all of these tools to do it with, it's insane.
Yeah.
The amount of gear that's just pretty reasonably priced, considering what you get, and the access to education online, and the access to people you might look up to, and the access to inspiration is everywhere. So I really feel like we're going to continue to see huge spikes and growth in creativity. I know a lot of people think the opposite, but I really, really feel like we're just at the start of seeing some wild creativity.
Awesome. So along those lines, in terms of putting this stuff to work,
Yes.
What advice do you have for the young players who do look up to you to establish themselves, find their own sound, and get out there and do it?
Number one is master your craft. It's a given nowadays. If You just got to be really good at what you do. You have to be great at it. You have to be a master of the craft. And honestly, that's not enough. Like, that's the bummer. Like, to really, to answer your actual question of what does it take to stand out? What does it take to, mastering your craft doesn't cut it anymore. Because I will scroll online and I'll see 100 amazing guitar players, way more technical facility than me, way better at the guitar than I am. If we're like measuring things, I don't know. But incredible guitar players, but I don't feel like they're saying anything. It's like, this great guitar player does nothing for me. Doesn't feel original. I can tell that you're not doing it live on the video because I saw that you did a hammer-on the video, but I hear a slide. You're faking it. I'm not going to call anybody out, but I see that a lot. And even with that, it's like, okay, you're doing something cool, but I can tell that it's not real, so how long is that going to last? Master your craft, do the thing, be okay with the mistakes. I messed up the form of my own tune because I got distracted and made a few mistakes. Fine, whatever. Find something that's unique about yourself that's going to be different than somebody else. You like Joe Satriani? You like Joe Sample? Cool. Blend those together. And guess what? I did not grow up. So I grew up listening to Weezer and Green Day and Jamiroquai and the Chili Peppers and Earth, Wind & Fire and Prince in a certain period of time. Now, you could take all those same artists, but you take them out of Minnesota. This is a person living, let's say they live in Birmingham, Alabama, and have a completely different life and lifestyle and are living in a different time. They have so much of their own unique life experience to add to what those influences are. It's going to be completely different. So why wouldn't you explore those things that make you unique and different? Because it will also, in the end, I believe, give you much more fulfillment in what you're doing because it really is you and your artistry rather than doing somebody else's thing.
Awesome. So this is a gear question.
Yes.
And this is a gear question that I heard you ask Marcus King on your podcast. Yes. And this is your gear picks at $20, $100, and then unlimited price point. So what would you put into those three categories?
I've asked this question on my podcast to a bunch of people. Nobody has ever asked it to me. And I can't believe that I don't have an answer just ready to go. I used to get so mad at clinics where people are like, what picks do you use? It's such a dumb question. It is a dumb question. You could probably look it up online. Pretty much any other guitar player out there, you could probably find out what kind of picks a guitar player uses. But I did. Imagine this, the shootout guy does a big pick shootout. I played with a bunch of different picks to see what feels great, what feels like it really works best with my technique, because the way that I hold the pick is weird, and it's like at the opposite angle of what's proper guitar technique. I hold my pick backwards, which many other guitar players do also. But finding a pick that really feels like it gets your voice out, you'd be surprised at how different a pick. I was blown away. Any piece, that's the piece of gear you should find at $20 or less, unless you buy those. What are those picks that the bluegrass players use?
Oh,
the blue chip. Aren't those like $50 or something a pick? That sounds insane, dude. Anyway, but they are great picks. I will say, when you play on them an acoustic guitar, those things sound dope. They like have this squishiness to the top end of them that anyways, we don't have to get into that. That's not what you asked. $200 or less, the thing that I would buy is a great overdrive pedal. Something that's just going to give you a little bit of gas when you need it, a little bit of edge when you need it. As a guitar player, it's like that feels like something you should probably be able to do. Hit a little bit of gas in there every once in a while. Money is not an object. What should you buy? We're doing this, guys. Are we rolling? Are we rolling? Okay, the thing you should buy, the Cory Wong Signature Stratocaster by Fender, available at guitarcenter.com, available at any of the local Guitar Center stores that you go to. Don't take it from me. Go into the store and play it for yourself. Okay, that's so dumb. But I do mean it because, for me, I mean that. Because this, again, like I was saying earlier, an instrument that will bring out what you want to do in the most effortless way. So go play a bunch of guitars at the store and see what feels right and sounds right to you. I mean, I used to do the, buying a guitar on eBay. It looks so dope. And then I get like, this thing sucks. It plays like garbage. It doesn't play in tune. And like the tech that I like to work on my stuff's 8 months out. Like sitting under the stairs. So go into a store and play the guitars and find one that really works for you. That's my answer for that.
And why stop there? Get the whole rig. Get the full set.
Now we're talking. Yeah,
We're
talking.
Get the EVERSE. Get the ZLX.
Yeah, get all of these so you can recreate this exact live stream at home.
So Cory,
the guitars.
We got to wrap this thing up, but we would love for you to play something to sort of take us out on a little dreamscape to fade out as we end the thing.
Oh, a dreamscape. I already played my dreamscape too.
Okay, how about high energy to close it out with a bang?
This is so funny because what I do on the guitar,
yeah,
like I'm a rhythm section guy,
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna just pretend that there's a drummer and a bass player with me.
Totally.
The use your imagination thing. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
right.
that's
Exactly.
what I'm doing. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna just play something and you can imagine what a bass player.
That's right. We'll fill it in. We'll fill it in in our minds. So I'm gonna just close it out for the people, and then we'll let you take it away. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for tuning in. We're gonna close this thing down, and we're gonna have a party here that you guys aren't gonna be part of. And thank you to everyone for tuning in. Thank you all for joining us here in the room today. Thank you, Cory. Yeah. This has been really great. Thank you for lending us your expertise, your experience, your wisdom, your knowledge. Thank you, Electro-Voice crew, for helping to make this happen. Everybody, go to your local GC. You get a Cory Wong Strat, plug it into an Evolve 30M, and just turn it way, way up. And don't forget, your guitar rig is much more important than just the amp next to you on stage. It's the full PA. So, taking it away now, here is Cory Wong. Thank you guys so much.
Punch the onion. That's what I was going for there. That's what I was going for. Thank you.